Good evening. Welcome to the Spiritual But Not Religious show. My name is George Lewis. I'm your host for this evening. Let me give you a little idea about Spiritual But Not Religious and the Spiritual Broadcasting Network, what we're really doing here. One of the things that I noticed, and I've been around this spiritual world for many, many years, is that we, as spiritual but not religious people, we kind of get lost in the shuffle. If you sign on for any kind of where they ask you the quiz of, what's your religious affiliation, the only thing available to us has been other. And we're like really kind of the unseen numbers of people. And there's a huge number of us out there. And we have no real voice, no real central place to be heard. And it's important that we be heard, especially on lots and lots of issues that pertain to spirituality and peace, and just the list goes on, lots of things. So Spiritual Broadcasting Network was created in order to bring those voices to you so that we have a place to hear them. There are just lots of authors out there, lots of very interesting people who are involved with trying to bring about a change in consciousness, who are in the spiritual revolution that's going on at this time. And that's the purpose for the Spiritual Broadcasting Network. We're heading towards full-time programming where you can tune in at any time and catch a live show going on. I have a brand new show that we just brought online tonight, Johnny Calloway's Tales of Inspiration. Johnny is a Kentucky boy. He's a great storyteller. He learned his trade in the little country stores where the old masters up there would learn how to teach these young guys how to tell stories and pass the lore on. We also have two other shows going on. Johnny's on Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock, 7 to 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, right here, same place that you're at. We also have the Brian Hill and the Upside of You. Brian is a world-renowned astrologer. He takes call-ins, does many readings for you, and he's just an excellent. Not only is he an astrologer, but he's also an intuitive. His show is at 9 o'clock on Thursday evenings, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. At 7:30 till 8:30 Eastern Standard Time on Thursday evening is Leanne Moody. Leanne is a multi-dimensional channeler of higher consciousness. And she just is wonderful. She's the real deal. We do call-ins. You can get a mini session with Leanne. So be sure and tune in for that. I started this evening by drinking a glass of water and took it down the wrong pipe and had a real coughing spree going just before we went on the air. So forgive me for that. I have just a wonderful guest tonight. She's intriguing. She's exciting. She's excited. Her name is Kim Skipper Corbin. She's the executive publicist for New World Library. Let me tell you a little bit about New World Library. It's got a long list of really top-notch, high-powered authors, spiritual authors. Dan Millman, Shakti Gawain, Eckhart Tolle, Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dyer. So, there are just way too many for me to list to you, but they're they're quite a corporation, and I'm going to let Kim tell us about that a little bit later on. We're going to talk about New World Library and about Kim's position there and what she does for a part of the show, but then we're going to get into Kim's special spiritual purpose. I guarantee you that you haven't heard of anything like this. It's fantastic. She's just a wonderful gal. Have we got Kim on the line, Tom?
Yes, we do, George.
Let me bring her on. Hi, Kim.
Hello.
You're able to hear me good?
I hear you.
Okay, I'm glad. I've been looking forward to tonight. I've been watching some of your other interviews. You were with you did an interview with the Osmonds, right?
I did. I skipped with Donny Osmond, believe it or not.
You actually skipped that. That's great. That's great. What fun. So Like I was just telling the audience how interesting that I find you, and the purpose we're going to talk about later on. I want to talk first about New World Library and about you as a publicist.
Yeah.
But before we get started, how about giving us a little quick bio about where you came from? How you got to be a New World publicist.
Well, it's definitely been a long, strange skip that got me here.
Huh.
I grew up in the Midwest in Indiana.
Uh-huh.
And I actually love the name of your show because when I was growing up, a couple of different times in my life, I had two different individuals say to me, "Wow, you're so spiritual." And at the time, I said, "No, I'm not. I hardly ever go to church. I don't like church." And I didn't know what they meant.
Right, exactly.
So it really, early on, I had that distinction. Eventually, once I got on my spiritual path and I started reading a lot of books and that kind of thing, it became clear to me what the distinction between being religious and being spiritual is. So,
and there's a huge distinction, isn't there?
There is.
Yeah.
There definitely is. And I think that spirituality is really about walking the talk that religion puts out into the world.
That's for sure.
Yeah. So I'm a Midwestern girl. I grew up in Indiana, moved to San Francisco in 1996, and have just been on an amazing journey of transformation and self-discovery and spirit guiding me ever since.
So did you go to college to be a publicist, or was that something you just kind of came into, or was that?
Yeah, I have a long history of following the voice of my heart. That's a theme that has gone throughout my life. Ever since I really got on my spiritual path and realized that voice even existed. And my degree's in elementary education, which, because of my passion for skipping, that's kind of an interesting coincidence.
Right.
But when I graduated, you couldn't get a teaching job in Indiana, and so I went to work as a teaching assistant and was making like $5 an hour. And my father wrote and self-published a book called The Edge Resume and Job Search Strategy. And so when I saw the book, I fell in love with it. It really resonated with me, and I convinced him that he should hire me to try and sell his book for him. And so he matched my $5 an hour teaching salary, and I went to work and taught myself the publishing industry through the self-publishing end of things. And then when I moved to San Francisco, I got my first job in an actual publishing house as a publicity assistant, and took it from there.
Fantastic. What does a publicist really do for an author? What's the biggest thing that you do as a publicist?
I am the go-between person between the author and their book and their work and the media.
Right.
So I'm trying to get book reviews, author interviews, which is how I found you guys. I think this was a great venue for a lot of our authors.
Uh-huh.
The online world, we're doing a lot of stuff with that these days, and so really just trying to get them exposure and interviews and getting their work out into the world.
Having done a self-published book, I really know how big a job that is. And
you have to be able to hear the word no and just stay positive and keep on trucking.
And it's a full-time thing. It's not something you can just dabble in. It really is a full-time thing. So I heard a few things in a couple of the interviews you did about New World Library, and I'm really impressed with them as a corporation and how they operate. I, like you, started listening to that voice of spirit, and I have allowed it to guide me for many years. As a matter of fact, the reason that we're sitting here tonight with the Spiritual Broadcasting Network is listening to that voice and following spirit. Your corporation actually does that, as I understand.
Yes, it's really, and it's so refreshing to me, especially in today's world when there's so much corporate greed and so much wrong with the way corporations operate.
Well, it's insane.
That there's a company like New World Library that not only exists but really is profitable and just a positive place to work. And the company was founded by Mark Allen and Shakti Gawain over 30 years ago.
Right.
And Mark Allen is the president now, and he wrote a book called Visionary Business and the Millionaire Course, and he's all about that corporations need to give back to their employees and to the community and to the world, just like we as individuals need to be part of the solution. And it's just incredible how that works. Every year, all 18 employees are given a % percentage of profits to give to the nonprofit of our choice at the end of the year. There's a generous profit sharing plan, so if we do well, we really are rewarded financially. It's an incredible team to be a part of, and to have the spiritual principles be part of our everyday work world.
So, as I understand it, they also give you a kind of a bonus end of the year with profits that you name to some kind of a charity of your choice.
Yes. So we get a certain amount that we can give to donate to nonprofits, like every December.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what I'm hearing and what I see is that the company really works on the basis of the things that you publish. You know, all of the things your authors write about, as far as how you deal with money. You walk the talk, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, there's lots of different ways that shows up. One is in our marketing meetings. We published a book called Mental Resilience that was about how, especially for people who are in business, that our mental capacities are our greatest resource, and so why meditation is a skill that all business people should have, really, if they want to make smart decisions under pressure and that kind of thing. And so when we published that book, we started meditating for 5 minutes at the end of our marketing meeting.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and to bring that personal spiritual practice that I have into the workplace, and it just solidifies us as a team, and it helps us become more powerful creators and manifestors in our work lives.
Well, you know, one of the things that in researching for tonight's show with you and with your company, I hadn't really thought about the huge role that publishing houses play in moving this consciousness change and bringing it about.
Yes.
And the way your website is set up is very nice. It really works really well. Hey, speaking of your website, you're going to give away a book. You want to talk about that a bit?
Yes. We have a Facebook page. So if you go to facebook.com/New World Library, you'll come to our page, and anyone that goes to the page and becomes a member or becomes a fan today and says that they like it, and then puts on there that they heard about it through the Spiritual Broadcasting Network, will draw one person's name to get a free book of their choice.
Great. Well, that's a good opportunity, and you know, the kind of people that we have as an audience are going to be interested in your books, and that's for sure. Yeah. I own a book that excuse me, I saw. I forget which interview. I think it was on a blog. I can't recall now, but it's called The Translucent Revolution.
Yes, for me, that was such a huge book. It was one of the very first books that I worked on when I came to New World Library 5 years ago. And it was me. I was coming off of a major creative journey with my skipping project that had been wonderful and challenging and all these things, but I had really found through that experience that what it felt like to use your life to make a difference. And
right.
The translucent revolution is basically quantifying that and saying it's not a coincidence. There's all these people that are having these spiritual awakenings and finding the way that they want to contribute, and realizing that that's what we're here for, is to use our lives to be a part of the solution and to create positive change. And it's a growing community of people, and it was so exciting for me to work on that book and to see that and to be like, yes, that's what's going on, and I'm so happy to be a part of that.
Absolutely. I'm sure that got you really excited about your work. Well, you know what's interesting about that book and about what's going on is it's really a leaderless movement, and that's as it should be, and very diverse.
Yes, yeah,
very
that inner
diverse
authority, that inner voice that we all have, and really honoring that within
right.
ourselves and that guidance. That's the leadership.
Well, you know, that's a bit of a job to get connected with for most of us. It's like trying to get that monkey mind quieted down enough where you can begin to hear that voice, not only to hear it, but to recognize which one you're listening to, because
yes.
There's more than one in there.
Yeah, it's a never-ending process.
It is a never-ending process, isn't it? It's like...
Yeah, because the ego voice can be pretty tricky.
Well, it's cunning, baffling, and powerful, without question.
Yes.
You know, it's you know, you're talking earlier about the problems with greed and corporations, and unfortunately, I think we've reached a place where capitalism early on works really well, but then as time goes on, you get to a place where a few people have everything, and capitalism is no longer working.
Yeah, I really like the phrase, the term conscious capitalism.
Yeah, absolutely.
That there's a way to be focused in that way, but to do it for the greater good. And I think that that's really what we're heading towards.
And that's what I hear your company and you participating in, and that was part of what was so exciting about having you on the show tonight. So, as a publicist, is there a most exciting moment that you had other than the translucent revolution?
Oh, there's lots of different exciting moments. I think for New World Library, when Oprah picked Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth, which we weren't the publishers of, but
right.
She picked that book as her book club pick, and really, I think that did so much for spirituality and for just presence for all of us as a culture. And then The Power of Now did really well as a result of that. So that was
right.
Extremely exciting.
Well, you published The Power of Now, right?
Yes, we did. We published The Power of Now in 1999, and there's 3 million copies have been sold so far, and it just continues. It's just an incredible, incredible book.
It's incredible. I work with a lot of people, and I recommend that book on a consistent, regular basis. It's just
Eckhart Tolle is talk about someone who walks his talk. I can give you an example. When Paris Hilton got put in jail,
right.
She ended up taking The Power of Now with her, and so she was coming out of the Bodhi Tree bookstore.
Wow.
With a picture of that. We have it hanging in our office.
I bet.
And CBS this morning wanted to interview Eckhart about that, and so they called, and then we called to find Eckhart, and he's really just into presence, and not, most authors would, rush.
Yeah, they'd leap at that.
To sit with it and be with it and feel into whether it was right for him or not. It's really it's incredibly refreshing again to see someone who not only is putting that great message out into the world, but is just embodying it in his everyday life.
Yeah, I think that's a big reason why the book works, and what he talks about in the book is because it's pretty recognizable as experience rather than opinion.
Yes,
and that's
absolutely.
Huge. It's really, really important. So as far as the book publishing business is concerned, you've been in it since what, 1999?
I started it in 1997.
97.
Yeah.
Oh, and then you left for a while, and then you came back. Is that?
I did, yes. So actually it was even before that. When I got into formal publishing, it was 1997.
Right.
And then when I did the skipping movement, I took a little detour out into left field for a while. But I've been connected with it. I was still doing freelance publicity work at that time. So
right.
I've been doing it for quite a while.
Well, yeah, and that as I looked at what had gone on there for you, I can see where that was a necessary thing to find your way to New World.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's interesting how sometimes we think the worst thing that happens to us turns out to be a really wonderful thing.
It does. It always ends up leading us somewhere. We're publishing a book by Sark, who she's an incredible author who wrote Succulent Wild Woman, was one of her books.
Oh, right.
Books. And we're doing a book by her this fall called Glad No Matter What. And she was telling us yesterday in a meeting we had with her that her mentor, who is in her 90s, that was the one thing she said when she was dying, was that all change is for the best. That was her big realization after all of her life, is that it really is ultimately for the best.
And the real key, I think, is realizing that we don't live in a static universe. We live in a very dynamic universe. When we try and hold on and try and make everything static, that's when trouble starts for us.
Yeah, and that's becoming, I think, especially with how fast things are moving these days, that's becoming harder and harder. It's like, skip on.
Yeah, it's almost impossible anymore. And you get called on your stuff pretty quickly these days, too, depending on, I guess, who you're hanging around with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So the publishing business, which obviously you had the other end of it, the I guess I don't even know if we can call it a new paradigm anymore with the print on demand, the digital publishing. How has that affected publishers like New World? Has it had any profound effect at all?
Well, I think that it's really causing publishers to be nimble, like we're just talking about with change. I think that we're in a time right now where everything's changing extremely rapidly. I mean, the online book selling world is changing, and that's changing how traditional booksellers work. And then we have all the e-books with the Kindle and the Nook, and now the iPad, and so it's definitely changing, and publishers are having to just reinvent themselves as they go.
Absolutely. Well, you know, and the thing that I think is going to really give publishers pause for change is when the 13-year-olds, you know, get up to our age. They won't have had that tactile feel of a book.
Yeah.
It won't be something, because we kind of cling to that. I do at any rate, and a lot of people I talk with. But they're growing up in a digital world.
Yeah, it's all about rolling with the flow of change, and then being able to deliver the content in, I think, new and exciting ways that we can't even imagine yet.
So one of the dreams with the self-published author is that because they published their book, a house like yours picks them up. Has that ever happened with you? Have you picked up an author who had self-published before?
Oh yes, that happens. It happens quite often.
Does it?
Uh-huh.
Well, that's fantastic. That's good news for those authors out there that are. We had another interview with Chad Lilly, who does the print-on-demand publishing, and he just kind of fills in as the middleman. And he's one of those guys that are in that business that are honest, and there's so many of them that aren't.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad how, you know, authors get taken advantage of. So tell me, in your experience, because there are a lot of really good authors who fail. What's the thing that causes most really good authors to never get out there?
Well, again, I think that it's a changing world. I think that there's ways to. Do you mean get out there as far as in a traditional publishing setting, or get out there as in put their work out into the world?
Well, you know, it's still difficult for an author to really get any large sales on their own. There, you know, a few breakaways, but mostly they're still coming from a publishing house. So they really need to be able to get recognized, I think, by a publishing house. What's the biggest thing that, you know, that causes them to not be recognized by a house?
Probably just the message needs to be really mainstream and targeted, but that's why I think that, again, I think the world of publishing is changing, and that because there's amazing self-publishing options, and with the internet you can really get your message out there into the world, and it might be to a more highly targeted, smaller number of people.
More specific.
But especially with spiritual publishing, I don't know. I think that there's a lot to be said for that, and then it's kind of recalibrating our ideas of what success is and what isn't, and realizing that if we're connecting with people that our work resonates with, whether that's 50 people or thousands of people that are doing the spiritual work we're meant to do in the world. I think about this a lot because I'm a struggling writer myself. So even though I work in the publishing industry, I worked on a manuscript for 10 years that's now on the back burner for a while, but I know that I am doing my spiritual work, and I'm following what Spirit's guiding me to do, and it maybe having a book out in the world is part of it, and maybe it's not. But
a lot of times it's timing too, isn't it?
Yeah, and again, with the online virtual world, I think that the playing field's being leveled a little bit as far as distribution and what a self-publisher or a person who's publishing on their own can do. I think that's really shifting right now.
Well, for sure it's shifting. Amazon's helped that along quite hugely. That's been a real change. Well, I think we've talked enough about New World and about your publicist job. Let's talk about your passion. I think your passion is wonderful. I have one of the things that I came to quite a while back was that if I'm going to be in the will of God, my spirit, whatever you want to call it, that I had that my job, my responsibility was to find my way to make my life joy.
Yes.
And when I'm doing that, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And there may have been a time where it might have been I'd have thought cocaine came from whiskey or cocaine or what have you, I'm old enough now and experienced enough to know that kind of thing is not going to bring you joy. It might bring you fun for a while and excitement and all the stuff that goes with that, but real joy. And your passion has given me joy that's like I can feel consciously in about a minute.
Yeah.
Tell us about how in the world you got all this started, because you have quite a following.
It's definitely been
fantastic.
Amazing adventure. I skipped as an adult for the first time in 1997, and the first time I skipped, I had this vision that I should try and start a national skipping movement. I thought, this is so much fun. I have all these free-spirited friends here in California, and I could get them to skip with me and do some publicity around it, and maybe it would start a trend.
Right.
But I talked a lot about the idea at the time, and I didn't do anything about it. I was just like, wouldn't it be fun if I did this? And everyone thought it was a great idea, but like so many other ideas, I wasn't ready for it. I was in my party girl time, and I wasn't ready to get serious about anything, especially fitness. And so 2 years later, I was just turning 30, and I was really looking for meaning and purpose in my life, and I started walking a labyrinth as an experiment, a few mornings a week, every week. I decided to do it for 21 days. And while I was walking the labyrinth, I was getting more and more connected to that sense of inner guidance and starting to really be able to hear my inner wisdom. And I decided that since I was getting up in the morning, that maybe I should try and start running to the labyrinth, and then I'd get some exercise too. So I went for a run, my first run, and still to this day, I'm never going to be a runner. I can't stand running.
I'm the same problem.
Yeah, I went like a block, and I was huffing and puffing, and I felt like a loser, and I went to work, and I told my coworker my story, and then just completely, and then a little bit later that day, she told me a story about her daughter asking her to skip with her at the mall. And she said, and I did it, but I felt so silly because adults don't skip. And when she said that, I realized that was my second calling. It was so clear to me, and it was a perfect storm of timing, because it was 1999. I was in San Francisco, where the internet was just starting to take shape, and so my brother, who's an awesome designer, helped me design the website, and I just put up iskip.com to see what would happen. And much to my surprise, it completely took off. It really did. I started organizing group skipping events in San Francisco, and then the media caught wind of what I was up to, and so it kind of went across the country through the media, and it ended up that there was hundreds of people out there who'd been skipping a lot longer than I had, and so this whole community formed.
Well, you got picked up by off the wires press, some real high line people caught wind of all of this. So skipping, this whole thing was with iSkip, and where you're going was your idea then.
Yeah, it was. Well, it came from within. It was Spirit's idea.
Well, I mean, it came through. Yeah, absolutely.
I followed. Yeah, I ended up People and Time and Newsweek and all these amazing media. I mean, and the fitness. Again, I was just doing it as a free-spirited thing. It wasn't about fitness for me, but the fitness community took it really seriously. So Prevention Magazine studied skipping and found out that it burns twice as many calories as walking, and it's easier on your joints than running is. And
so they actually did a study at Prevention.
Yeah, so it really is a very valid form of exercise, which surprised me. And then all these skippers that were out there, some of them who just started skipping through the website, started doing their own work to further the skipping movement.
Well, I'm sorry.
So like a guy in Oklahoma wanted to help kids get fit, so he had the governor of Oklahoma proclaim him the skipping ambassador of Oklahoma.
Really?
And a woman skipped 100 miles across Atlanta to raise awareness for a wildlife sanctuary. And a guy actually set a Guinness World Record for being the world's fastest skipper recently.
Really?
Yeah, all kinds of amazing things. And I still, to this day, through iskip.com, just whenever there's skipping news, I report it on the website.
Right. So you're the go-to person as far as skipping anyhow. So if anything's going to go on, people are going to contact you, I would suspect.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of health benefits to skipping. You know, I almost went out this afternoon to do a little skipping, but I'll tell you what I ran into, and it's interesting, and that was what you were talking about, the ego.
Yes.
I walk my dogs every day, and usually in the morning and in the evening, and we'll go for a couple of miles. But I can't run. My knees don't want to run, and I don't have, like you, I don't have the body that really works with running.
Yes.
And but you know what? There was this little voice that you talked about that said,
Yes.
"Hey, you know." But I've skipped often in my life, and it's like the moment within 2 skips, I'm feeling joy.
Yes, and I think that you just that ego voice that you articulated. I think for me that was the biggest, most freeing aspect of skipping, because when I had this inspiration that I should start a skipping movement, but that meant I had to go skip down the street in San Francisco, and my ego thought, you can't do that. People are going to think you're crazy, and
Right.
but I was just, it was so strong within me that I just let my voice and my spirit lead, and when I did, that became stronger than that ego voice, and so and then that translated into other areas of my life as well. So I would hear the ego voice say, you can't do that, or that people will think this, or people will think that, and my spirit could say that in this moment this is about joy, and it helped me to be able to pick that.
I would suspect that one of your qualifications, living in San Francisco, helped Spirit to pick you for that.
Yes.
Had you been in the Bible Belt, it might have been a little harder to get to work through.
Yeah, I think so. It definitely, because the communities here, especially I went to the Burning Man festival right before a couple years. I'd been going for a couple years when I started the skipping movement. I was volunteering. It's this amazing art festival that happens in the desert every Labor Day weekend, and it's really about freedom of expression and being true to yourself, and not, the only rule there is express yourself fully. And
Right.
so it really was a continuation of that for me. But it's interesting because so much of that is, and it's not based in truth. It really, if you skip down the street, and once you get past that inner battle that goes on, if you just skip down the street and don't even really worry about what other people are thinking, people smile, or they may not even react at all. I mean, they may be thinking something inside, but it's not as bad as we think it's going to be.
Most things aren't, are they?
No,
No.
yeah, it's not interesting.
No, the ego, that dark side of me just likes to think it should stay in control. Well, when you started skipping publicly, did you where you really were going to go out at it? Did you do it by yourself, or did you enlist some people so that it was a little easier for you?
At first, I did it by myself. And I can remember that first morning, because I was like, "Am I really going to start to do this?" And so I got to get out there and skip. And I went for my first skip, and it was the same route I'd taken on the run that was not successful. And I made it like a whole block, which seemed like a huge accomplishment for skipping. And when I came up on the first person, I thought, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And I remember looking at her, and she just looked me in the eyes and smiled from ear to ear. And it was an exchange of joy. And then the next 2 people didn't even look at me. They could care less what I was doing.
Yeah, well, that's part of the problem with the ego too. It just thinks everybody's focused on it, and most people aren't paying attention to you anyhow.
Yeah, they're in their own heads worrying about what everybody's thinking about them.
Yeah, they don't really care. We're watching out to see who's looking at us.
Yeah.
So, do you skip on a regular basis, or just when the idea hits you, or do you have a regimen of skipping that you follow?
Well, it goes in waves, if I'm perfectly honest. I definitely always skip spontaneously and for joy, and that for me has always been what I've loved the most about it. Because I have the website and people interview me about fitness, and that seems to be what most people are really interested in, is the physical fitness benefits.
Right.
I definitely go in waves with that. I love to skip on the treadmill at the gym, and just recently, Tracy Anderson, who's a really well-known Southern California trainer, who works with Gwyneth Paltrow and Madonna. She's been having her clients skip on the treadmill, which I've been doing for a long time, and that's actually one of my favorite things to do, is be at the gym have serious runners on either side of me,
and you're skipping.
So that was you. That was her, huh?
Yeah.
It's so fun.
You caught Tom over there. He broke out giggling over there. You got a visual of you being on the. You gonna try that, Tom? You gonna skip at the gym?
Probably not gonna try that.
It's
no,
really
no.
fun.
Tom goes to the Y here, and his nickname, he's the mayor at the Y. You know, might be a little hard on his ego to go do any real skipping there.
And unfortunately, it's true that it's hard for women to do this, but because of our culture, it's even harder for men. I mean, there's more. It's an even more loaded thing for men to skip than for women to skip, which is unfortunate because that's my whole thing. It's like, this is America. This is land of the free and home of the brave. And if we want to skip, then by all means, I wish that our spirits were free to skip. And that's really what it's all about for me.
Well, you know, I can see where you got the masculine and feminine thing attached here, and when you think about skipping, you kind of think about it with hopscotch.
Yes.
You know, and that was a feminine thing, and you know, hey, we're past that. We can't do that kind of thing. Well, what's interesting is when you start to really realize that we're all male and female anyhow.
Yes. And getting comfortable. I think with that feminine, I think that so much of what's going on now spiritually is an emergence of that femininity in men and in women. And,
thank God.
And vulnerability. Yes, thank God.
Thank God.
Thank Goddess.
Thank Goddess. I'm absolutely with you there. It's yeah. There's been a real imbalance of masculine energy for centuries. You know,
Yes.
It's hard to say what it might have been like if there was an Atlantis or a Lemuria or something that was before recorded history, but certainly in all of our recorded history, it's been the masculine. And it's been so misinterpreted and abused.
Yes.
At war, the warriors.
Indeed.
So there was there's on your website, not your website, but on your Facebook page, there's a statement that says, "We believe the world will be a happier place when skipping becomes a more acceptable thing for adults to do."
Yes.
Boy, I absolutely believe and agree with that. What's interesting in that statement, Kim, is what we've been talking about, the internal dialogue that you have to go through to be able to come to a place where you can skip. You have to be soft.
Yeah, and actually, I think that's a great moment to mention too, that it doesn't necessarily have to be literally about skipping. Skipping can be a metaphor for whatever it is. I mean, there's some people out there who's never going to skip a step in their life.
Absolutely.
There's something within them that brings them that same childlike joy that they love to do, that they're not doing because culture, society, as it is right now, says it's not okay. And I mean, it's not hard to see that our culture and society that we're listening to is not dialed into the wrong channel a lot of the time.
Well, totally. We've been sold such a bill of goods about the need to be successful, what successful looks like. It's very interesting that, like people will go to somebody for advice about something that person may not know a doggone thing about just because they're wealthy.
Yes.
It's just, I don't know if we've, hope it's going to rub off on us or what the deal is with it, but it's pretty insane, really.
It really is.
So I also noticed that there was, I'm trying to think of I guess it was the Jamaican skipping magic. Tell us a bit about what.
Oh, yes. That just happened recently.
Uh-huh.
Someone on the Skipping Movement's Facebook page had posted a video, and it was this great song that said "Skip to Maloo," and it was kind of this I thought it was kind of like hip-hop, just like really, really cool rockin' song.
Right.
And then the next weekend, I've been learning how to play pool lately. This is a new passion for me. I've never played pool in my entire life.
Is that right?
I'm becoming a pool shark.
So we can tell that you didn't have misspent youth then, if you've not.
Well, I don't know about that. I just didn't play.
I see.
I wasn't sitting still long enough to play pool.
I understand.
But so I was playing pool, and there was this guy there who had just moved from Jamaica in February to California, and there was a song on the jukebox, and I'm a dancer. I've been doing a lot of ballroom dancing and that kind of thing lately.
Right.
And so I was asking him about about dancing and if he danced, and he said, I only know Jamaican dances. And I said, well, how would you dance this song in Jamaica? And he said, like this. And he started doing this leaping side-to-side dance. And so I tried to mimic him. And then while he was coaching me on how to do it, he said, skip, 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 skip. And I laughed, and I said, it's funny that you say skip because I'm the world's most vocal advocate of skipping.
Certainly the most known, that's for sure.
And the loudest, I think.
Right.
I was yelling it through a megaphone and all this stuff.
Right.
And so he told me that there's this dance in Jamaica. It's the hottest dance in Jamaica right now, and it's called the Skip to Malou. And when he said that, I realized that that was the video that had just been posted on my Facebook page. Like 3 days before. It was, and really that kind of magic and synchronicity and coincidence, I think that is how spirit gets our attention, and to me it feels like confirmation that I am on the right path and I'm doing what I'm meant to do, whether it makes money or doesn't make money or whatever. And it was a skipping miracle.
Oh, listen, Kim, from what I could see, there's just no question in my mind but what you're on at this moment, on the path that you need to be on. It's like there's this other thing that comes other than the joy that we get from skipping, and that's the connections I see you making with people.
Yes.
And the love connections.
Yes. It really is about the love.
Yeah, and it's just, skipping is this means to bring people together, so we can begin to, instead of being so critical of diversity, begin to really celebrate our diversity.
Yes, individuality and being who you are.
Yeah, we there's so many of us want to follow the crowd, and we just don't dance to our own drummer. I guess you dance to your own skipper.
Actually, what the Oklahoma skipper has a great quote that I often say is, "Why march to the beat of your own drummer when you can skip?"
Absolutely. You can go there having a good time. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be forced. That was one of the things you were talking about with this being your purpose, is that in the joy connection. When I look back at a lot of the spiritual movements of the past, pain was so involved with it. And and if you didn't feel the pain, you somehow or other weren't real in your spiritual quest. And boy, that's so backwards from the reality of it. Maybe pain needs to bring us to that point where we're more open.
Well, it's interesting because when I first started the skipping movement, I had this idea that it was going to be, I'd found my calling, my purpose, and it was going to be this straight shot.
Yeah.
It was going to be this wonderful skip event, the rest from then on.
Right.
And that's not what happened, because I was so inspired. I thought I'd found my calling, and I quit my job. I said, I don't know how. My dad's like, how does the cash register ring, Kim? How are you going to make money? And
how are you going to monetize this, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to leap, and the net will follow. And I thought the book I was writing was going to be what was going to save me financially, and I did it very publicly. I was blogging about it and sharing, telling the world what I was doing, and I skipped myself into financial ruin. It was really not very much fun, and I really got to walk my talk, skip my talk. And it's one thing to say to the world, come on, let's skip and be happy when everything's going well in your life, and it's another thing altogether when I got fired twice from jobs when I was trying to get back on the beaten path, and
I bet
my whole world was completely shaken up, and it was really challenging. And that's why it's so refreshing to be at New World Library now and to realize that there really was method to the madness, and everything that I've learned along the way was worthwhile, but it hasn't all been the joyful emotions. I had to go really deep into some of the more challenging ones too.
I think that visit to the dark side of us is so essential. Like we want to look just at the light and follow the light, and that at some point works. But you gotta get in there, and you gotta find out who you really are.
Yeah, it's the hero's journey. You gotta go into that darkness.
Absolutely.
So you know what you're coming back with, and I feel like that's a lot. I'm still figuring that out. I'm finally coming back out of the valley, and and looking back at the whole experience and really wrapping my arms around what I learned. And I think once I do that, then a book or whatever will come next. But I'm just enjoying where I am again now, and that feels really good.
Following is such a huge part of all this stuff.
I've got a question in chat.
Yeah, we got a question in the chat room for you, Kim.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Kim, it's Tom. I've got a question from J Maz. She says, Kim, have you thought about publishing your book about skipping as a print-on-demand book?
You know, if it was at a point where it was ready to share with the world, I would be open to that. But the problem is that it's half baked. It's not there yet. I haven't found a way yet to write about my story in a way that's really meaningful to other people, and I trust that wisdom will come. It's not here yet, and especially working in the publishing industry, that's my practice right now, is to be grateful for how I am serving, even though there's a piece of my own journey that hasn't fully come together for me yet.
And I'm sure that will show itself in good time. It's like, it seems like the doors stay shut until the time. And
right, yeah, and really, what I finally got to, because I've been beating my head against the wall trying to figure out my book process, and when the skipping inspiration came in, it was because I was in a place of really receiving. I wasn't trying to think about it. I wasn't beating my head against the wall. This inspiration came from within, and I have to trust. I finally got to a place after 10 years of trying to figure it out, that if I just let it go and enjoy my life and enjoy the moment, that whatever's supposed to come in will be able to come in. But if I don't let go and make room for it, then it can't
get through.
Don't come through. Yeah.
Be still and know that I am God.
Amen.
It's like that stillness is so huge. And the fact that your company meditates after your business or during your meetings, that's phenomenal.
Yes.
I think that gives a chance for direction that couldn't come otherwise.
Yeah. There's one of the books I'm working on right now is called Hand Wash Cold, and it's written by a Zen priest who's also a mother and a wife, and she really writes about how so many people are wanderlusting and soul-seeking and going outside of themselves to all these places to try and find what they're looking for. And really, we just need to go more deeply into the lives that we have and be present with, and find joy in the. And she says in the laundry. She's really into the laundry.
Right.
But
chop wood, carry water kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's where I am. It's just like really being grateful for how life is calling me to serve right now, and the contribution that I'm making right now.
You know, we tried to set up an hour with her, and I think there was some concern about the video, but I'd love to have her on the show, Kim, and we'll talk with her and just use the audio.
Okay.
We don't need to get into the high tech part of it, because I think it's a great book. It's I think it deserves all the publicity we can get it. So I'd love to have her on. We'll talk. I'll have Tom call her, and we'll see if we can set that up.
Great.
So, what are some of the other ways, some of the other events that you're planning? Have you got anything as far as skipping is concerned coming up?
Not really as far as skipping goes. There's a group that's down in Southern California that's going to be doing a fundraising skit that I'm helping with, and I have a friend actually who I met through Facebook who's helping me do a video kind of highlighting a lot of what's happened with the skipping movement. So we've been working on that, and that's a lot of fun. But I really I'm just in a place of receiving right now of what comes next for me.
I would think that because skipping is so physical and so nice to watch, that like maybe a documentary might work really well. And drag yourself into film there. What would you like to tell us about your vision with skipping at this point? I just kind of letting it go where it might go. You have.
Yeah, I'm just in a place, like I said, of receiving and putting, celebrating the different accomplishments of skippers that are out there. I think I'll always be a skipper, but there's just so many other areas that are where I'm focused right now.
Well, you're in such a great spot to bring whatever you get focused on into being. It's like and into view, where there are an awful lot of people that come up with ideas and they're kind of closeted and they never really get a chance to bring it out. But with your background, that your ability to when I think about how like you came with your father's book and like and how that path has led you here, it's pretty obvious that there's something going on for you in the way of in the way of the fact that you do this publicity to be able to bring it out and get it out to the public. How does somebody?
Definitely one of my passions.
Yeah, and it shows itself. I think that's hugely important. So many people make decisions about what they're going to do, how they're going to make their money, based on being a doctor. That's and they don't even want to be a doctor.
Right.
Or being a lawyer, whatever it might amount to. It's too bad we don't teach this in school, how to get connected with spirit without getting it entangled with religion.
Right.
In some way. So how does somebody become involved with you? You have a Facebook page, and then you have iskip.com, right?
iskip.com is the website, and there's a place that you can subscribe to the newsletter there.
Right.
And then I welcome for people to send me their skipping stories, and it's always been a co-creation. So I sing the praises of what other people are doing. There's some films that are out there. There's a movie called The Last Real Cowboys that Billy Bob Thornton is in.
Right.
It's really amazing short film that is skipping based that I have on my website.
Really?
Yeah, and so the producer of that has become a good friend of mine, and so whenever anyone is doing anything for their nonprofit or their group, then I try and help them publicity-wise by putting it out into the world on my website and helping them get interviews and that kind of thing.
That's fantastic, and the name of what do they search on as far as Facebook? What's the best thing? Just
on Facebook, if you search for The Skipping Movement.
The Skipping Movement, right.
That will come up. And then this would also be a good time to remind people who are listening that if they go to New World Library's website and
absolutely
put a comment and say that they like it, and then put a comment on there that they heard about it on the Spiritual Broadcasting Network and the Spiritual But Not Religious show, that we'll do a drawing for people and we'll give away one free book to a listener.
That's fantastic. So just go to the Facebook page, join up, and you'll have a good shot at a free book. And I guarantee it's going to be a good book too, judging from what I see you've published over there. So all right, we're kind of drawn to a close here. What have we missed? What would you like to talk about that we haven't talked about? Anything? We covered a lot of territory, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. We've skipped all over the place.
We have skipped all over the place. Well, we don't want to skip something, though, right? We're not going to make a comedy team. I can see that.
That's right. I would just encourage people who aren't familiar with the Burning Man Festival to check that out as well.
Right.
The website there is burningman.com.
Why don't you tell us a little bit more about the Burning Man Festival? What really? I've heard of that, and I've not really looked into it much. What goes on there?
It's the week before Labor Day and Labor Day weekend.
Right.
Basically, last year I think there was 50,000 people that come together and build a temporary city in the middle of the desert. So it's really extreme weather conditions. It's cold at night and really, really hot during the day, and there's whiteout dust storms that can last for hours. So you're really, it's not for the week of heart.
Sounds like an awful lot of fun.
But it's a temporary city called Black Rock City, and basically there's no commercial vending whatsoever. There's no, you can't sell anything. People cover up the logos on their rental vans. It's all about just the gift economy. People bring gifts to give away. There's a roller disco. There's a place where you can get your hair washed. There's free massages. There's bands. It's a fully functioning city.
And this takes place in the desert.
Yes, in the Black Rock Desert in Nevada, which is about 2.5 hours from Reno.
Right.
And when I first moved here from Indiana, someone invited me to go, and the only thing that I knew about it was that it was clothing optional, and that scared me to death.
Well, that'll scare a few people away, or bring a few people.
Talk about your ego. It's like, I'm not gonna. What am I gonna do? And I'm gonna feel like a prude. And it's so about just being who you are. So if you're someone who doesn't want to take off their clothes, you don't have to. It's not. It's really about freedom of expression and being yourself. But by the end of my first year, I was topless and body painted and like, yeah. Like, I really found myself there.
Well, we have a thing like that goes on down here in Key West, where.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Everybody. Do you remember the name of that time where they have a parade and it's like
Fantasy Fest.
Fantasy Fest. And
cool.
Yeah, and there was just body painting, totally nude with body painting. It's gorgeous stuff.
Not that we've ever been there before.
Yeah, Tom. Tom's gotten in really good shape here in the last few months. He probably would be, pleased to. What do you think, Tom? You ready for that?
I'm ready for it. Let's go now.
You guys at least would be used to the heat living in Florida.
Well, I'm not sure we ever get used to the heat. Every August, it actually hits into September, Kim, and I'm like, I'm never going to spend another summer here, but here I am.
Yeah.
I was born in Cheyenne, Wyoming.
Wow.
And then on to Michigan for all my childhood. And boy, I just don't deal well with cold at all. I can tell where you live, you don't. I spent some time up in San Francisco too.
Oh, it's a great place.
What area do you live in up there?
Actually, I've just moved up to Novato, which is where New World Library is located in Marin County.
A
couple of years ago, but I lived right downtown in San Francisco for 10 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's an amazing city.
Amazing city. I was in the Marine Corps out there in the early '60s, which was pretty wild time.
I bet.
Things were going on.
I bet.
Well, of course, at that time, Kim, most of the, people around had long hair and tie-dyed clothes, and I in the Marine Corps, it's like I looked like a cue ball with a nose. So it was kind of a different time for me. Listen, I've had a really good time with you tonight. I felt like we kind of skipped here on the air a bit, and I'm going to be out there tomorrow. I promise you I'm going to skip out in the wide open. You've challenged me. I'm going to...
Okay, just 5 steps. Just 5 steps.
That's what I will do.
Okay.
I'll do 5 skips.
You'll have to let me know how it goes.
Well, we'll look forward to talking to you again.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, thanks, Kim.
Skip on.
Yeah, I'll do that. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
What a great guest. She is a bubbly, really fantastic woman, Tom. I really enjoyed my time with her. Where are we at? We just about got
about 2 minutes, George.
2 minutes? Well, I want to tell you a bit then in this 2 minutes time about our new shows. We've got Johnny Calloway. Matter of fact, Johnny last night was the headliner at the Florida Studio Theater in their Cabaret Lounge here in Sarasota. As a matter of fact, he told the story that he told here at 7 o'clock tonight. He's on Tuesdays. His show precedes my show. He's on from 7 to 7:30. My show every Tuesday, 9 until 10. And we have Leanne Moody. Leanne on Thursday nights, 7:30 to 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. Leanne is I just have done a couple of sessions with Leanne. I've done an awful lot of inner work of all kinds. And Leanne was able to help me get down into a piece of me that I had not even known was there. And it's just a very powerful experience. So you want to be sure and tune in to her. Brian Hill follows at 9 until 10 with The Upside of You. He's a fantastic astrologer. He talks about something different each week and does mini readings, so you can get a free mini reading. But be sure and come on over to the Spiritual Broadcasting Network. And if you're out there, join us on the social network we have started there. We have blogs, we got videos, just a lot of stuff going on. We would really love to have you join with us, take a part, offer your voice, and let's see if we can't get this spiritual revolution moving a little quicker. I have enjoyed my night with you tonight. I hope you've had as good a time as I have with our guest Kim, and that you'll come back next week. In the meantime, don't forget to accentuate the positive and have a fantastic week.